everybody, it's Safi and Marco, Dish Out on the Movies. Today we are doing a book review of the Slappy book called...
The Ghost of Slappy.
Slappy? The Ghost of Slappy, you say? Me too. And Marco too. Makes no sense. Right off the bat, we have a problem with the storyline.
When you read that title, you think... If you're a sane individual, a smart person, you think, this doesn't make any sense. I bet at one point in the book, they're going to explain what's going on, and it's going to make total sense. Well, oh boy, were we in for a surprise, because the surprise was that we never get that explanation, so it's like, oh, cool. He's just a ghost because he's a ghost. That's what a ghost is. He's a ghost. Like, great writing.
Okay, well, we have, first of all, because it's the Ghost of Slappy, this is a Slappy book. In other words, it's not just Slappy breaking in at intermission or at the beginning, at the end, or maybe another break. And it's this one actor or voice person who plays his voice and who does a very good job. Which is another thing right off the bat. Well, not right off the bat, because you don't find this out until you get through the book a little bit. But, of course, I think both of us listen to an audio book. So,
no, I listened to somebody read the book on YouTube.
Okay, well, I listened to the audio book.
And I was happy that I did, because I don't like watching these stupid, or listening to these stupid audio books where they're just not very good.
Well, I don't have any problem with them most of the time. And I've said before, too, that, and I've already found this out with the Tony Hillerman books, I've read several now, they've had 3 different readers. That's not good, because 2 of them, you can hardly hear them, and they don't do as good a job. There's one who does a really good job, but you just never know, like, in one of the books, somebody dies. The reader dies. So they can't use him anymore because he's dead. So, anyway, back to that. Well, so the thing is, I said this is a Slappy book. By the title, you can tell. So you have Slappy talking all throughout the book. But guess what? For the audio book, they have the usual guy, Joe Freya, I believe. He does intermission. He introduces the book. He ends the book.
Oh, so he's the flamboyant Slappy, right? Like, well,
yeah.
Does the other guy sound like any different, or is it...
The other guy is the reader, and he is changing his voice.
Well, no, like, does he sound like flamboyant and gay like the Joe Freya does?
No, but it's still weird, because here he is imitating his voice, but then when you come to the intermission, or whatever you want to call these breaks, this other Slappy comes in. It makes no sense. I don't understand why they didn't have Joe Freya because they do this in books. I've had it where they'll have a couple of other people, or maybe usually at the minimum, they have 2 people reading the book, and they'll play, one plays a whole bunch of characters, and another one will play a specific character. So I don't know why they didn't have Joe Freya do the voice in the narrative, not just these breaks. So that didn't make it, and I thought that was strange. And they're completely different voices. I mean, that Joe Freya has developed. I mean, he's done several of these books, so he has developed a certain persona, which is recognizable. And this other guy, he's a reader, and he does all the voices. And so it just doesn't make sense. So there's one thing. Number 2, the premise of the book. It's a ghost Slappy. How can Slappy have a ghost when Slappy isn't alive? He's not a living being. He is a living dummy, but that's not. He's supernatural. He's already like a quote spirit. So how can a spirit have a spirit? That's like almost like a double negative. It doesn't make sense. So you just have to put that out of your mind.
Well, because
and go through the book. It's just ridiculous.
Let's also talk about in certain books, when Slappy is defeated, he'll have something come out of him. Like in the second original book, he has this gross worm come out of his body. Like Jason and Jason Goes to Hell, he has a worm crawl out of his body, like Slappy is a worm person or something, and so I don't know. I just don't understand, the idea of this book really seems like, oh hey, The Ghost of Slappy sounds like a really fun title. Kids will love it. It sounds like fun. Oh, we have to write the book now. Oh no. Oh, how do we do this? Oh, let's just throw shit at the wall at this point, because this book really felt to me like R.L. Stine is really sick of writing Slappy.
And I don't blame him.
And
I would be too.
I'm sick of him too. And honestly, as I've said before, I would much prefer 20 Monster Blood books than 20 Slappy books. Because I feel like Slappy is something special, and I don't like how he's been used so much. Where it's you have all these crappy books, and a lot of them are very very much the same. And I wish that it would be more of a special thing than what he's made it.
Now, and in many of the books, the character or characters make a stupid mistake.
Yeah.
Or stupid mistakes that reverse or change the whole dynamic of the story. In other words, it could have gone a different direction if they had just done a simple thing, and it wouldn't have been too complicated of a thing. We'll come to that, what that means.
And this character made that mistake before the book even began, so he really had no chance.
Yeah. Really. And we just say, okay, well, we'll start the book rather than getting into all this. But it's about, there's two kids, of course, a brother and a sister. The brother is Shep, which I keep thinking it's a dog. I mean, Shep, usually you call a dog Shep because shepherd.
Shepherd's pie.
You can I know you can call humans. I think there was some kind of, I don't know what, an anchor on CNN or somewhere who was named Shepherd. He's gone. I didn't really watch CNN, but I remember the name, Shep. But usually you associate that name with a dog, a shepherd dog. And then the sister's Patty, and she's 9, he's 12. And really, and the parents work at home.
This says that in some year, I don't know which year, it says that there's 399 people in the U.S. named Shep. Mm. So it's a very uncommon name.
What about your name?
Oh, let's not talk about that.
Oh, anyway, so right off the bat, the kids, the boy, the 12-year-old, is going on this overnight with his class, and it's like an overnight in the woods. I think they're gonna tent camp. They're going to have a campfire, and probably eat hot dogs or whatever. And and they're so this is 12 years old, so it's like 6th grade.
That's when I went to Camp Joy.
Right. I kept thinking about Marco, but they didn't go for just an overnight. They went for
a week.
No, I don't think it was a whole week. It was a few days, so it wasn't any stupid little overnight. Oh, anyway, so he's getting ready and packing, and he has to get a sleeping bag. The sleeping bag's in the basement. He doesn't want to go to the basement. He wants everybody else to go. Why? Because there's a ghost in the basement. And nobody believes him. And we're like, well, gee, it's called the Ghost of the ghost of Slappy. I keep wanting to say something about haunted, like the haunted mask, you know. It's the ghost of Slappy. So I'm thinking,
Or the haunted scrapbook, like in the show.
Right. So I'm thinking, well, maybe this has to do with Slappy. And no, and he is really afraid. He is terrified. But he ends up, because nobody in the family believes him, that there's a ghost. And I'm thinking, is this like an old house? And that's never explained. Doesn't sound like it to me anyway. And so he goes in the basement and there's a ghost down there, a real one. And it's Annalie. Now that's another thing. How does he know that the ghost name is Annalie? Was that brought up?
No.
I mean, you just don't know. If you see a ghost, you don't know its name.
Well, R.L. Stine knew her name, so he decided, hey, I will write a ghost named Annalie, and that will just be, oh, well, where did her name come from? I don't know, but it's her name, you know, it's a story, you know.
He's seen this ghost several times.
Yeah.
And you think that he'd be used to the ghost by now, like, I have something like called a sense of curiosity. Why is this ghost here? Why does it want to talk to me? Why doesn't it appear before anybody else in the family? You gotta wonder. I would wonder.
He could have just nicknamed her Annalie. Like, he could have just said, like, look, I don't know your name, but I'm going to call you Annalie. But he didn't want to interact with this ghost. And
no, he was deathly afraid.
Who would? Like...
Well, who cares? After a while, you get used to it. It becomes part of the house.
But
like the house ghost.
He doesn't know if she's a malevolent ghost or if she's a friendly ghost. Like, he can't know. And the fact that his family won't believe him because they're a bunch of fucking retards is really problematic, because, like, if she caused something to happen to him or if he got in danger, they wouldn't believe him or anything. So, like, I don't blame him for not wanting to interact with this ghost.
I don't agree.
Because, like, I mean, he's already a wimpy piece of crap character.
He's a terrible
like
character, and I don't like him.
He might be one of the worst characters we've ever read in Goosebumps history.
He's very childish, and I know he's 12. So what?
Yeah, so what? I wasn't like that at 12.
Other characters they've had who are younger, even younger, or they're the same age, and they're not childish like that. They're not totally mature, but I mean, he's just totally childish all throughout the book. He acts like a little wimpy baby, and it's just, I can't stand it. It's making me sick.
Yeah, there was one point, too, where one of the only notes that I wrote was that there was one hilarious point where he starts crying and having a temper tantrum and saying, "This isn't fair! This isn't fair!" And it's like, what the hell? Like, this, what? Why would you do that, R.L. Stine?
School?
I don't know where he said, but it might have been at the birthday party.
It's either that or at the school.
But he yelled out, "This isn't fair!" Like, this is not a 12-year-old kid unless they have, like, some sort of problem, like behavioral issues. Like, this is weird. And this whole book was weird. It was a very weird thing that it really felt like he does not care about writing Slappy. He's just doing it because he has to.
And so, how does Slappy get introduced into the story?
The stupid teacher.
He's not at the house. No way. The teacher introduces Slappy. Because what happens is he's got to go on his trip. I mean, he's leaving. He had to get his stuff and run out the door because there was a bus there. The school bus was going to all the kids' houses and picking them up to take them to this overnight camp, which was interesting. They didn't, because Marco, when he did this, they all went to the school. All the parents took them to the school, and the buses were there, or bus, I don't remember, that doesn't matter, and they just loaded up there, which really makes more sense. And so, unless it's some kind of small town, and maybe they would do that. So anyway, which I don't think they do that there either, because I lived in a small town and went on field trips, and I don't remember them ever coming to the house to pick us up. So anyway, So when he gets on the bus, there's no bus driver. It's a dummy driving the bus. And guess who the dummy is? Well, who else would it be? It's Slappy. And the kid, like I said, he's so childish and scared of everything. He has a fit. And the teacher takes a picture of it. So he can, put it on his Facebook page? I know, like, what? That freaked me out. I couldn't believe that. And then I'm wondering about the teacher.
Yeah, this teacher is like how Justin Long acts like in the new Goosebumps episode, where he's just like, let's just all accept our fates and get to know each other for eternity. Like, this teacher, and Hanson was his name.
His name is Hanson.
He was a weird teacher. He was not like a normal teacher. He was very strange. Bringing Slappy along on this trip makes no sense at all. He's a terrible character.
And he knew Slappy's background. He knew what he was capable of.
Yeah, and he brought him to his whole class, so his whole class could possibly be terrorized by him. Like, wow, what a great teacher.
And what happens right after they picked up everybody and they're on their way to the place? What happens?
Slappy.
Oh, wait a minute. He took him out of the seat and he had him on his lap or something. And then a regular bus driver started driving. I have to bring that up because you're gonna all say, well, if he's not alive or anything, who's driving the bus? I had to make that point.
Well, Slappy ends up hijacking the bus.
Yes, he hijacked the bus, so he was alive. He just was quiet.
And so that whole sequence was strange, and
he didn't know how to drive, of course. You're driving a truck. You have to have a special license to drive a bus. And, Slappy doesn't have any kind of license.
But at least that whole sequence was fun. Like, at the beginning, I really thought that this book was going to be good. I thought that, finally he had broken, formula, and that he was going to write a good Slappy story. Because it really starts off unconventionally, where they go to this camp, and it's like Slappy could be there, and he might terrorize them. And it actually was pretty creepy. And I felt like, ooh, like the whole thing's going to be a camp story where it's just this one night. Oh no. They go back to civilization, and then it becomes like a normal Slappy book where all the stupid things that always happen, and but it's just even stupider because it sucks even worse.
Well, so anyway, the bus driver, because if you ever watch anything on YouTube, you always see a story about a bus driver that there was just one saved a kid from choking. I can't remember what. A kid was choking on some kind of snack item, and the bus driver saved his life, and that was just a few days ago. And anyway, the bus driver grabbed Slappy and threw him back to the teacher. And anyway, the teacher had these magic words. I mean, you know what those are, except they didn't sound like the regular, some of them did, but some of them didn't, the regular magic words, and he said them and Slappy went limp. So he said that he had put him to sleep by saying those words.
But again, you're asking yourself, why would this teacher endanger his students like this?
And he said that, too. Why did I bring that dummy?
I don't know.
They're going to have a fit when they find out what happened with the bus.
Well, see, the thing is that the kids, I guess the kids never tell their parents because, Safi and I were thinking, if the kids did tell their parents that he brought Slappy and Slappy terrorized them,
they wouldn't believe it.
All the parents would say is, okay, where did he touch you?
Yeah.
Like, that's what they would say.
And that's kind of the more relevant thing. I mean, you wouldn't think that a ventriloquist dummy would be coming to life.
Show me on Slappy where Mr. Hanson touched you.
Yeah, that's...
Right, Safi?
Yeah. So, they go to the camp, and they try to proceed while everybody's all freaked out. They saw the dummy come to life and were driving the bus and almost getting them into a wreck. and they're there at the camp. The bus driver leaves. The bus driver's not due to come back until the next morning. So everybody's all freaked out, and they're almost like, can we go home? So anyway, long story short, he has an enemy, one of the kids, and I guess you could call him a bully, but he used to be his friend.
And it's really shitty why this bully became a bully. He became a bully all because the kid accidentally kicked him in the face at soccer. It was an accident. And, so he's gonna bully him for the rest of his life? What a piece of shit.
Now, I know the characters in this book there really aren't any good characters.
Yeah,
you might have a character to cheer for or something.
Not in this book. In this book, all the characters suck. Every single one. The teacher sucks. The parents don't believe anything. They suck. Hashtag believe Goosebumps children instead of believe women. Slappy is actually good, though, because he's old school Slappy, but then the main character, he does have a crush on a girl, which is very unconventional, but she sucks too. And so, all the characters just suck. I hated everyone in this book, but it was so confusing because it's there was a lot of unconventional stuff in this book, so it's difficult because I like the fact that he made a couple of changes, but it just sucks, so I can't really say that it's a good book.
So anyway, the teacher puts the dummy back in his tent, and then, they have dinner, and I wrote down, it's really hard to see, but, something like hot dogs and stuff like that. Anyway, no s'mores. Anyway, so he says, they're having a campfire, they're all sitting around, they want to know what's going on with this dummy business. Of course, they're curious, and because they all saw it come to life. He says, and he starts telling them a little bit of the story about the evil person making Slappy and the magic words, just like a couple lines. And he says, why don't I get the dummy and I'll pass them around, everybody can look at them. And so he has the bully go to his tent and get the dummy. Well, he's gone a long time, and the teacher says, what's going on? He says, he's not in here. So he thinks the dummy never even went back to sleep, and the dummy walked away. Well, what do you think happened? I mean, I wondered, but I wasn't sure about the specifics. What does the bully do? He takes the dummy and puts it in his worst enemy, Shep, duffel bag, and then he tells the teacher it's gone. The teacher rushes over there to his tent. He thinks this dummy's on the loose, going to wreak havoc everywhere in town.
And to be fair, that would have been a much better story, Slappy terrorizing these kids at camp, because it was creepy the way that they didn't know where Slappy was, and the teacher had to stay up to keep watch.
Yeah, and everybody was worried and freaking out.
But this is how shitty the teacher was. He fell asleep on the job, and then he was like, if I want to go to sleep, I'm just gonna wake one of you kids up, and one of you kids can stay up, and I'll go to sleep or something. Just really, really terrible teacher. He's the adult. He's he wants these 12-year-old kids to stay watch with him at night. And it's that was kind of weird too. I was is he gonna touch them? Because that's weird.
So anyway, he falls asleep, but Shep doesn't. He wakes up because he hears a noise. It's something wandering around. It's making heavy footsteps, and he's already a baby when it comes to the ghost in the house.
Yeah, he's a big baby.
Has no intellectual curiosity whatsoever. And then guess what? So he's having a fit, and he's outside of the tent, and the teacher wakes up, and it's a rabbit.
Yeah.
Which, I've been camping, and I don't think rabbits are out at night, really late at night. It's usually skunks, raccoons, bobcats, coyotes, things like that. Depends on where you are. At least raccoons. They're everywhere. So, whatever. Slappy's gone. They're all freaked out. They want to leave. Well, then none of them, nobody else is awake. So the next morning, they're all ready to go. And it takes 2 seconds for them to all pack up. They want to all go home. They've had the teachers really worried and freaking out because he thinks this dummy is wandering the streets of whatever town they live in, and wandering the woods to go after somebody.
But he never comes back in the book, though. Like, never comes back
until
to learn.
The end.
The teacher?
Well, yeah. Well, he goes to school.
But he never comes back to learn, like, oh, you have Slappy? What's going on with that? Like, he just disappears for the rest of the book except for the school stuff. So, like, it was like, oh, he's just out of the picture now because it's too hard to write him into the story, too. I mean, I guess it's better than in Don't Feed the Weirdo, where you had that guy who was looking for the weirdo, and he comes to find him, like, one time, and then he just leaves the book until the end of the book. Like, that guy was pretty trash, but at least he was in the story a little bit more. Like, this teacher, he's the whole reason for Slappy being in the book, and then he just leaves. And it's like, he never has to pay the price or anything. Like, this poor kid who's a giant baby has to deal with it.
And we have to listen to it.
Wah! It isn't fair! Wah!
So anyway, he discovers the dummies in his bag. And guess what? The bully left a note and said he did it. So he has no doubt. There's no doubt that he left it there because the bully left him a note, of all things.
Yeah.
So he calls his best friend. His best friend's getting ready to have a birthday party coming up. So he can't stay long. And then, he knows all about the dummy, of course, because he was with them at the camping trip. He's in his class. His name is Carlos. And he's just not anybody to cheer for either. At first he is, but he just ends up being a jackass.
Another jackass.
Yeah. And so, of course, the sister, this is the usual thing, very predictable, wants to know what he's holding, sees the dummy, and
then you have the cliche scene where Slappy says mean jokes.
No, you have the scene, the classic scene where the little paper falls out of his jacket.
Oh yeah, that's another classic scene that we needed to see it for the millionth time.
And the sister picks it up and says the words, and Carlos and Shep are having a cow. Okay, so why is that? Because he's alive again.
Yeah.
And then from then on, it's just all mayhem, and I don't even know which mayhem incident you want to bring up.
Well, it's important to discuss the fact that,
I guess we have to get into
the ghost part where it's so retarded. Like, Slappy takes him to the cemetery. The only thing I will say is that Slappy in this book, he is very much like old school Slappy. He's very mean and evil. And he breaks the main kid's nose. He strangles him at one point. He punches him out. Like, this is the Slappy that we wanted in all these books. Like, this is not like flamboyant gay Slappy from the Slappyworld books. This is the real deal Slappy. So it's just unfortunate that R.L. Stine decided to put him in such a weak story with weak characters, because this could have been the best one if it was just a better story and better characters.
Now, so Carlos has to go home. Sister doesn't believe anything. The parents are having a fit because they hear all the nonsense going on. And
well, we should talk about Slappy takes him to a graveyard.
Yeah, but this all happens first because they want to take him. They were talking about taking him back to school.
You said you didn't want to go through that.
Well, I know, but this is how he ends up in the graveyard.
Oh.
Everybody's gone. It's late at night, and they've had a few punching incidents where he's hit him in the nose real hard, but not enough to break it yet. And so he decides he's going to go to the garage. And how does he end up at the cemetery?
I don't know. You said you didn't want to go through all that, and you want to go through it.
Well, go ahead.
Well,
no, we have to.
No, we don't.
Well, we have to in order to say how he's a ghost now.
I can't. I know we're going through the cemetery scene, but we're not going through how he got to the cemetery.
Okay, well...
So they're in the cemetery, and Slappy pushes him in a hole, and then he pushes Slappy in the hole, and Slappy cracks his head open, and then that's when he apparently becomes a ghost. Which doesn't make any sense at all.
He doesn't know that yet either. He thinks, because he pushes him and everything, and at one point he hit him so hard in the nose he broke his nose.
Yeah, that whole cemetery scene was great up until, that's where he becomes the ghost. Like, that's totally not believable.
No.
Because how did he become a ghost? That doesn't make any sense, and it's never explained, or even attempted to explain, or make up any excuse for why that makes sense. So.
Yeah, and what was happening, too, is, before he fell in the hole and everything, the kid was trying to grab him so he could get in his jacket and find that piece of paper. And he managed to grab him a few times. He never found the piece of paper. He was going to say the words and make him go to sleep again.
And he kind of gives up on finding the piece of paper after this incident, too. Slappy comes back as a ghost, and he's like, I don't know what to do.
So the question is, what happened to the piece of paper?
Well, another thing...
We'll come to that.
Another thing is, like, if he read the piece of paper to him as a ghost, like, wouldn't that also put him to sleep? Like, I don't understand why the magic words would put Slappy to sleep only if he was alive inside the dummy.
Yeah.
Like, shouldn't it also put the spirit to sleep, too? Like, how does that work? It just doesn't make any sense at all. And it's not nitpicking either. Like, this is the main plot, is that Slappy becomes a ghost. And if you can't explain that, at least with, like, a grade school level, then you probably should write a different story. And not just do it because it's a fun gimmick to have a title that says Slappy the Ghost, or the Ghost of Slappy. Like, fuck off. Write a good story.
So, he says, oh, great, he's dead, because there's no response at all. He tries everything to... And it's been snowing, and there's some dirt in there. And he manages to climb up on that. And doesn't he put Slappy there, too, and climbs up on Slappy? He uses him as a stepping stone.
It was cool that it was snowing.
Yeah.
So, as I said, there were some cool things. It's just... It just was not up to par as a whole.
So he gets out, and he does he fill the hole completely? I guess it doesn't matter, but he...
I can't remember.
Piled as much crap on it as he could with the shovel that was there, and covered him up, and then he goes home.
What?
And then I guess we come to the next day, right?
I don't know. We're not going through this whole book like this. This is why these videos are all like fucking 2 hours long, is because you're going through every single little detail.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out what to say next.
Well, just go through them very briefly. Like, Slappy comes back as a ghost, and he says, ha ha ha, you can't defeat me anymore, I'm a ghost, bitch, ha ha ha.
I know, like, this is the next day at school.
What the fuck is up with that?
He knocks on the window of the school in his class.
Oh yeah, that was pretty hilarious. Like,
that's how it starts.
And this main kid, he's just like, ooh!
I'm thinking of that vampire movie where the vampires are hovering outside the window.
Salem's Lot.
Yeah, Salem's Lot. That's what I'm thinking of when Slappy's knocking on the window.
And this main kid's such a little bitch about everything. You know, it's like, why can't he just go to his teacher and say, hey, teacher, you know, after you brought Slappy to the camp like a fucking idiot, well, now Slappy is terrorizing me, and I somehow turned him into a ghost. So you figure it out, you fucking
Yeah, he never
terrible teacher.
He never really tells the teacher what's going on.
Yeah,
which
and
is bizarre because he ran outside.
It was his dummy in the first place. Like,
yeah. What they were going to return, he and Carlos were going to return the dummy to him. He had every intention of doing that.
Here's your dummy. We killed it. We killed your dummy.
So he kind of just makes a fool out of himself in class because he sees this head floating around outside, tapping on the glass, and bad things happen at school because Slappy gets in the school and causes people's food to slide off the table, and spaghetti going all over his head, and a pie going in his face, and everybody's laughing. It's just a nightmare. So anyway, he goes home, there's that birthday party, and then of course that's another gigantic nightmare.
Yeah, where Slappy actually almost kills the main character, and his friend doesn't even care. Like, he almost died because he almost got thrown off the horse.
And he was holding on for... I don't think he's ever horseback ridden anything.
No, and this is, by the way, it's a horse ranch place where he has the birthday. And, yeah, and his best friend doesn't even care.
No, he just gets mad at him.
Yeah.
And says maybe you should be best friends with Slappy or something.
Yeah, really weird.
So what happens?
Well, he comes up with a smart plan, I guess, where he says, like, I want to bring Slappy back to life so that then when he's alive, I can put him to sleep. He was dead, apparently. The dummy was dead somehow, even though he was never a person.
He goes back to the cemetery, right? And digs him up and gets him and brings him home?
Yeah, and he tries... What does he do next? Because I can't even remember. It was so stupid.
Well, what happens is...
I remembered stupid Annalie and her little thing at the end, but I don't remember, like... What does he do
to
Slappy?
I can't see my paper.
Oh, let me see it.
I don't know.
Give me that.
Well, I don't know if I wrote it down.
The woods. Cool October day. Hot dogs, potato salad, beans.
That's what they had for their picnic.
That's the kind of notes.
Dinner.
That's the kind of notes that Safi writes, and then she tells me that all I do is nitpick everything. I mean, come on. If that's not nitpicking, I don't know what is. Hot dogs, beans, and potato salad. Oh. God, there's like 10 pages of notes. Now Slappy's ghost is... Okay, we're still not there yet. Where is it? Slappy started strangling him. Annalie... Okay, so he didn't get to bring him back to life, but there was never any plan for how he was going to bring him back to life in the first place. But he tries to, I guess. And then Annalie comes out, and she's like, hey, you know how you've always been scared of me? Well, I was actually a very good person, and you... well, not in my real life, but in my real life I was very selfish, but in the afterlife I changed, and I became a born-again ghost person, and I'm actually really nice, and you should have just... not been scared of me and heard my story.
Well, she gets mad. She's mad because he's never wanted to listen to her or talk to her.
And she thinks that Slappy wants to talk to her, like.
And so she said, you know how ghosts are ghosts because they have unfinished business. Well, my unfinished business is to do a good deed, and then I'm going to move on.
Yeah.
And so the kid's like, oh wow. You're going to help me somehow.
And then I will get to hear your story. Oh, wait, no, I won't. But then I will at least be grateful and realize that I did wrong. Oh, no. Then she rips up the paper with the magic words that she's been keeping all along. Yeah, and therefore, Slappy just gets to terrorize him forever. And then she goes to wherever. And she moves on. And it's like, God, what a bitch. Like... Annalie's character sucks too. Like, she's probably the worst character in Goosebumps history because her character was solely created just so that she could ruin this little boy's life. And, like, all because he wouldn't hear her story. And it's like...
So what happens when we find out that this kid is supposed to be Slappy's slave forever? We hear the music.
Dun, 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 dun,
Every
dun,
single
dun, dun.
during a story, when the kid gets in some kind of permanent trouble,
That is the sign you get fucked up.
they play this tune
Yeah.
every single time.
And I was surprised that Safi didn't start laughing because I didn't hear that because I was listening to a YouTube video, so I didn't get to hear the music. But, like, it just feels like it would be really hilarious to hear that come on because that's when you know these characters are screwed.
Yeah.
All because he wouldn't hear her story.
Well, I mean, it was really ridiculous. I mean, like I said, I could understand he was scared the first few times, but the ghost is living there. Why?
But that's still not an excuse for, like, why she would harm this little boy.
Yeah, I know.
And
That's
also,
another thing.
in
It's
turn, harm his family. Like, that was not a good deed at all. What she did, that was an evil deed, objectively. Like, I'm sorry, that was not a good deed in any way, shape, or form.
No, well, that's what she called it. She had to do a good deed, but she didn't do it for the kid. She did it for Slappy.
Well,
she doesn't even know.
Well, you know, a lot of people have done what they call good deeds, and then it's really something that's not a good deed,
No, I
and
shouldn't have done
that's
anything.
what you call terrorism, and that's what happens with that. So,
So anyway, we brought up all the problems, and just the main one basically is, how can Slappy be a ghost if he's not a human being? Ever. He's supernatural. It makes no sense. So that's problematic because you have that idea in your head during the whole thing. And the main character is a dip, S-H-I-T.
yeah, he's a dipshit for sure.
I really can't stand him. I just could barely listen to it because he just bitches and moans and cries and whines and complains and during the whole thing, and I'm like, I'm sick of it. So anyway, I gave the book a D because you just can't, and I think that's generous. Because,
It is very generous.
because you can't. There's just those are, and then the reading. Now this is not R.L. Stine's fault. I don't understand why the reader of the narrative did Slappy's voice. That the guy who does all the intermissions and introduces the story and ends the story, like he does an epilogue at the end, why he doesn't do the voice of Slappy. Because there were plenty of opportunities during the book to do Slappy's voice. So I didn't understand that, but that probably has more to do with the company who does the audiobooks. And what'd you give it, Marco?
Well, I was really, like, upset about it because, as I said, there's lots of cool things, and just the fact that Slappy in this book is like how he used to be, I really wanted to give it a good grade. If the whole book took place at the camp, I was really excited too, because I was like, this is already pretty creepy, and it would be really good to have, like, a whole camp story with Slappy in the camp. But no, they couldn't do that. They had to go back and do all the scenes that they've done before with, like, he goes to a party and ruins the party and all that bullshit. So I just had to give this book a D. Because...
So it's been there, done that.
Yeah, because I looked at the tier list, and, you know, I also gave, like, Fright Night, like, a D something, and I thought that this book was worse than Fright Night. You know, the one with the school monsters, and so I had to put that below Fright Night, and the only way I could do that was by giving it a D. And I would never read it again. I would much rather read any of the other Slappy books that we've read so far again. And I should also say, too, Marco has a population of 65,382 people in the United States at whatever year. So just to show you how uncommon that ship name was. R.L. Stine probably, he's just trying to think of names that he can use for characters so that...
Maybe he watched CNN, that's where he got the name.
No, hopefully not.
That's where he was.
Hopefully not.
He got fired or something, or left. A long time ago.
So, Safi, do you have anything more to say about the ghost of Slappy and also the ghost of Anna Lee, who, who's she?
Well, that was the thing. How did he know her name was Anna Lee? I already brought that up at the very beginning.
Well, no, who is she, though? What the...
Well, I know, that's another thing. We have no backstory at all. That's why I was wondering, are they living in an old house? With the house we lived in before, it got destroyed. It was built in 1865, and we had at least 2 people come there and stay in the beginning. I won't say who they were, but they were bad. They've done bad things. Not bad like killing or stealing, like they were, they had bad behavior towards their wives. I'll put it that way. And they both saw a ghost of a woman, and at different times. And they were very upset.
and so if they were upset, how would you expect this 12-year-old kid to see this ghost and be like, hey, maybe I'll give you some of my dinner and I want to hear your story?
Well, I know that, but they were just coming to visit. They weren't living there.
Yeah, and so if you had to live with that ghost, you'd be a lot more scared.
No, you wouldn't, because I would think you'd have a curiosity about why they would be there.
That's creepy.
I just don't agree.
If she's just standing in a dark corner and she's like,
hovering over their beds,
like the maid in House on Haunted Hill, something like that. You remember that where she's like, seeing that, I would not want to go up to her and be like, hey, what's your story?
I just thought it was funny because
I would want to get out the proton pack and be like, let's bust some ghosts!
I just thought it was funny because I thought when it happened to these particular people, I thought that's very interesting because they have something in common. So anyway.
But what does Anna Lee have in common with Slappy? Nothing.
Nothing.
What a bitch.
Well, that's what I mean. That's that story with the ghost. I mean, my God, you can see tons of YouTube videos. You can read tons of books about ghosts. And really, I just saw there's the YouTube channel called Faces of the Forgotten, and they're doing kind of a concentration on real life haunted stories, like historical stories, kind of as part of Halloween. And so, all they have there's tons of stuff like that, and that you could do the research. It's not that really difficult to do the research.
And I was excited too because I thought, ooh, this sounds unique. The Ghost of Slappy. Oh, it's just another piece of trash.
Well, it's just not. It's too loose. There's not enough cohesiveness. There's too many holes.
Yeah, it is very much like throwing crap at the wall.
Where we're coming up with the story.
Yeah, we have to fill in all the holes for them.
I'm not going to do it.
No, I'm not doing it either because
we're not getting paid to do that.
When did this come out too? It came out in 2019 or 2018, and it's back then apparently nobody complained. They gave it a 4.4 out of 5 on Audible. God, these people are delusional. Oh, 5 out of 5 from somebody on Google audience reviews. They don't have any actual specifics to say. Somebody else gives it a 5 out of 5. Great book. Nice storyline.
They're from
5 out of 5. Awesome book. Go buy the book.
They're from Europe. You see the way they spell favorite.
Who cares?
Well,
5 out of 5. Awesome book. Is there a part 2? Oh no, there isn't, because
that would be explained to kid. What happens to that poor kid?
Yeah, what happens to that kid? Does Slappy, enslave him forever? Does he sell him into the underground world of sex slavery? What happens?
I can understand him saying, is there a part 2? because of that.
Yeah, but he still gave it a 5 out of 5 though. So
I know. Well, they're not reading it to be critical.
But
like
you don't have
thinking.
to.
I know, but I think those are kids.
Oh well. Maybe when they grow up, they'll realize, like, God, I really liked some trash when I was a kid.
Okay, we better go now. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and become one of our subscribers and tell us what you think about these books or any of the movies we've been watching, or have you been watching any of these special series like American Horror Story has some kind of stories, or Five Nights at Freddy's, or any of that.
Nobody cares.
Marvel, that's not true. So goodbye, everybody.
Bye.